All right, here we go. So, first of all, the definition of humanism. Well, anyway, it's the one that we have on our backs of our shirts. I think we have a few people here with the shirts, and it's also on our new business cards. One definition of it, anyway, is the life philosophy that people can live ethical, meaningful, and fulfilling lives without supernaturalism or dogma. Another way to really even more concisely say it, it's about being good without God. That's about as simple as it gets, and describes humanism pretty well. The questions that the high school kids had for me, as you can see, they started with the easy questions, you know, what's the origin of the universe and man? My answer to them was, while there's still many unanswered questions about the origin of our universe, our current state of scientific understanding is that the universe began as a single point of nearly infinite energy about 13.8 billion years ago, which expanded rapidly in an incredibly short period of time and formed the early universe, which over time has become the universe as we know it today. While this process is known as the Big Bang, that name is somewhat misleading since it was not actually an explosion, but rather an incredibly rapid expansion of space itself and the energy within that space, kind of like blowing up a balloon. We also know now that the universe is continuing to expand and will continue to expand indefinitely until many billions of years from now, all the energy within the universe has been expended. As for the origin of man, the evidence in the biological sciences, biology, zoology, botany, anatomy, biochemistry, genetics, paleontology, all indicate that all humans today are descended from a common ancestor which existed approximately 6 million years ago. Not an actual photo. This ancestor was a primate species which is now extinct, but from which we inherited many of the attributes that modern humans share today. Another easy question, what is the purpose of mankind? So humanists believe that actually the humanist perspective on this is pretty simple. We believe a person's purpose in life is that he or she chooses to make, is whatever he or she chooses to make of it. Without a divine being to make that decision for us, we believe that we're free to pursue the things that we find meaningful and free to determine what gives each of us the greatest sense of purpose. So here's a video by humanist Neil deGrasse Tyson where he talks about how he finds meaning in life. Okay, so what is satisfaction and how do I attain it? Much like the previous question, satisfaction is up to the individual to determine what provides the most satisfaction in their own life based on their own personal desires and circumstances. However, I would add also that there's studies have consistently shown that almost all humans share in common certain things which provide us with the most satisfaction. These include being a part of a social and active community, having meaningful relationships with others, and showing compassion for others and helping others in need. All of these are key parts of humanism, much as they are for other religious communities such as churches. In those aspects, humanist organizations are similar to religious churches, but the key differences being that we do not have any rituals, holy texts, dogmas, or belief in the supernatural. Instead, we believe in an entirely reality-based worldview in which our actions are not driven by supernatural reward or punishment, but the desire to do good for the sake of making the world a better place. So, next question, what has gone wrong with the world? It's a pretty simple question. Well, then why is there evil in the world? Why do bad things happen to good people? So it's a common belief that things have gone wrong with the world and that things are worse now than they were in the past. Yet the opposite is true in pretty much every way imaginable. Crime levels have plummeted dramatically, both in the US and worldwide over the past 50 years. The number of people dying in wars as a percentage of the population has dropped to their lowest levels in recorded history and probably all of history. Economic inequality, poverty reduction, education, and civil rights have seen and are continuing to see enormous strides, and despite the popular notion that our society is getting dumber, average IQ levels have actually increased dramatically throughout the 20th century all over the world and are continuing to increase. And of course, the number of deaths due to natural causes, particularly infectious disease and famine, have dropped enormously, even while the total world population, which is the dark rising line, has skyrocketed. Meanwhile, the famine deaths in red have plummeted. So, of course, most people seem to be under the impression that things have, quote, gone wrong with the world and wish we could return to how things used to be. One reason for this misconception is that we're now so much more connected to the outside world than ever before with constant exposure to news media. And for a variety of reasons, news media tend to focus on negative news, such as crimes, disasters, and tragedies, even when those things are actually relatively rare. And of course, the popularity of apocalyptic end times theology, especially in Christianity, plays a big role in this misconception as well. So, to be clear, there are many things in this world which are extremely tragic and many horrible things that we should be doing everything in our power to prevent. We certainly have a lot of room to improve as a civilization. But the reality is that with rare exceptions, most significantly environmental issues, the world is actually now better than it has been in just about every way and continuing to get better all the time. As for the question of why bad things happen to good people, the simplest answer is that we live in a world where we have the capability to commit evil acts. And according to humanism, there is no supernatural overseer or supernatural entities to prevent them from doing so. Which is why it is especially crucial that we do whatever we can to help each other and try to make the world better, because if we, i.e. humanity, don't, then nobody else will. And thanks to Ariel for that last line. It's actually on his business card. Similar anyway. Okay, so what's right and wrong? And is moral truth absolute or relative? Simply put, the humanist view of right and wrong is that it's wrong for someone to cause undue harm towards others, whether through action or inaction or through the prevention of scientific progress, and that we should strive to reduce the overall level of suffering in the world while increasing the overall level of happiness and prosperity. While this may seem rather obvious, humanism differs from some of the more traditional worldviews in that we do not believe in any moral restrictions against behaviors and practices which do not actually cause any harm in the real world. For example, homosexuality and same-sex marriage, or practices which may actually prevent harm, for example, birth control technologies. Also, the humanist view of morality is that our understanding of the world is constantly improving as we continue to learn new things about science, about society, about ourselves, and about ethics overall. As a result, the humanist understanding of right and wrong is also something which improves over time as our understanding and knowledge improve. So in that sense, humanists don't necessarily view moral truth as absolute because we do not see morality as something that's fixed in place and never changing, but rather it's something which is constantly improving. So at the same time, that's not to say that humanists believe in moral relativism or cultural relativism. So for example, we would not say that all perspectives and moral systems are equally valid, or that certain behaviors are unethical in certain cultures while ethical in others. Rather, humanism sees morality as a human principle, and because all of us are human, it applies to all of humanity equally. Next question was, is there a universal moral law? Does everyone know the difference between right and wrong? So, with very rare exceptions, basically, only really people that have neurological disorders of the brain, all of us, we naturally have a sense of what's right and what's wrong, and kind of an innate sense of empathy that enables us to feel for others and a desire to be good towards others. So studies of human babies, for example, some pretty recent ones that have shown that these tendencies actually start to manifest themselves at a very young age, extremely young age, before they've had the opportunity to be taught right from wrong. Even several animal species, of course, show these behaviors as well. And all of this makes perfect sense in light of evolutionary theory. Humans managed to survive throughout the centuries and become the dominant species on Earth, not only because of our intelligence, but because of our innate desire to work together with others and establish cooperative societies, which increases the odds of everyone surviving and passing on those qualities to the next generation. All right, what happens at death? Where are we going when we die? So, the humanist view of death is probably best summarized by Mark Twain. I do not fear death. I have been dead for billions and billions of years before I was dead, or before I was born, and have not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it. So, while most humanists would certainly love for there to be some way for us to continue existing after we die, we realize there's no credible evidence that the afterlife exists. More likely, being dead is simply going back to the same state as before you were born. And because humanists believe that one life is all we get, we believe that every moment of life is precious and that we should do everything we can to make a positive impact during the limited time that we have. And if there is any kind of immortality, it exists in the continuing influence of the things we did while we were alive and by our ideas hopefully continuing to positively affect those in future generations. So that's it for my question, my answers. I did want to also include some of these slides that Angela, our vice president, put together that also describe certain aspects of humanism. For example, the responsibility for our lives and the kind of world in which we live is ours and ours alone. We find wonder and awe in wonder and awe in the joys and beauties of human existence, its challenges and tragedies, and even in the inevitability and finality of death. And again, Neil deGrasse Tyson, we are all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, and to the rest of the universe atomically. All right, so that's it for the...
Can I have one? Education is the key to prosperity for individuals and countries.
Nice. Maybe we could make a slide out of that.